Imagine walking into a lift where everyone else is facing the back wall instead of the doors. What do? Do you face the doors as usual, or do you follow the crowd and turn around? This small, inconsequential decision highlights a powerful force that influences all of us: social conditioning. Today, we're diving into how this shapes behavior and how understanding it can transform how we approach behavior management. If you are caring for someone else, whether paid or unpaid, and no matter how many hours you do it, did you realise that you may be missing out on thousands of pounds of discounts for things that you may use every day? The Able to Care podcast is proud to be sponsored by the UK's #1 carers card. Started by two best friends who recognise that carers deserve better and are 100% committed to helping to change the lives of all carers and bringing them together as a strong community. Carers Card UK provides support, recognition and rewards. It offers reassurance by providing an ID card that helps access emergency information when needed, while also unlocking discounts, a wellbeing hub, a carers circle tool and a community through their app. All of this for less than the price of a box of chocolates a year. There are discounts on gym membership, days out, electrical goods, clothing and even glasses. Let others know you care while taking a little care of yourself with an ID card you can be proud of. Visit carerscarduk.co.uk/promo code/able to care today to order yours. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Able to Care podcast. I'm your host, Andy Baker, and today we're going to be talking about what's called social conditioning. So social conditioning, one of the things that I've included within my book is moving away from kind of behaviorist thinking of kind of punishment reward focus around behavior to change it, whether that be within the home, whether it be at school, in care, or even in a business. The old logic of kind of punishment reward is very limited. And the more we understand about it, the more we recognize actually it may not be the most effective and beneficial way of improving outcomes and changing behavior. So let's look at what's called social conditioning. So social conditioning refers to how we learn behaviors, norms, and expectations through interactions with others. From very early childhood, we've all heard the phrase of "it's not do as I say, it's do as I do." It's not do as I do, it's do as I say. However, we all know that kids are going to do what they see. And this is sometimes, obviously, whether it be explicitly taught, whether it be expected, or sometimes rewards are given for certain environmental or for social norms. So this isn't just about fitting in. It's a form of survival. Making sure we're acting in a similar way to the herd, acting similar to the others, is always kind of an adaptive strategy to navigate the world around us. Okay? If I watch my primary caregiver avoid that thing, then I should avoid that thing so it doesn't then hurt me. There's a reason she's avoiding it, and that's how as social creatures we often learn. So where does the role in social conditioning kind of occur within behavior management? Well, whether working with children or adults or even elderly, it's vital to recognize that much of their behavior is influenced by their norms and cues that they've absorbed from their environment over the years. For caregivers, teachers, and even business leaders, I suppose, this understanding is an absolute game changer. Instead of focusing solely on problem behaviors, that we start to see the bigger picture of how the environment, systems, expectations, and history have all shaped these behaviors. There's a few wonderful examples of experiments that have been done to kind of demonstrate, and some of you might be familiar with some of them. The first one is the Solomon's Ashes conformity experiment, where individuals in a room were basically given a bit of a quiz, if you like. And although the answers were fairly obvious, when you had a room full of people where the majority of them were actors, and then you had one person in the room who was the subject of the experiment, if all the actors purposely gave the wrong answer to one particular question, even though it was fairly obvious that they'd all got it wrong, in I think it's about 70% of cases, 75% of cases, something like that, participants often ended up giving the same answer as everybody else, even though it was pretty obvious that it was wrong. And that's that nature of peer pressure within the environment, that everybody else is saying this, and maybe I'm the one that's wrong. We've mentioned that in other podcasts of things like pluralistic ignorance and stuff like that. Another famous experiment is the Bobo Clown study. And the Bobo and Clown study was really interesting around the impact on children's behavior. So basically, there was two groups of children. That one saw an adult in another room go into this place where there was lots of toys and activities to do, but there was also like a giant inflatable clown. And in one set of the experiment, the children saw this adult kind of hitting the clown, throwing it, punching it, hitting it with hammers. And the other side, the control group, the children saw the adult go in the room and kind of ignore the clown and just engage with puzzles and other such toys. When the children from the two groups were moved into the other room, guess which group then behaved aggressively towards the clown? Because they had learned from that social norm through observation, this is something you can do, or this is something that you do in this room. Now, that maps over in a big way over to different environments that you might be working with and supporting, or even the culture of the organization. If we kind of see one person doing something or not doing something, then we're going to kind of follow. And this is where it's really important within certain organizations that we have to lead by example. If I'm coming in and sort of acting in a way, but then telling everybody else who lives there, stays there, that we support, well, you shouldn't do it this way. It's the ultimate form of hypocrisy. So we have to kind of live by example. Okay, so where are the practical applications of this within behavior management? How does this translate into actual action? Well, the first one is recognizing that the environment matters. Create spaces that model and reinforce the behaviors you want to see, whether it's in a classroom, workplace, or home, and the culture sets the tone. So encouraging and setting very clear rules, very clear boundaries, and clear expectations of this is how we behave here, and promoting and encouraging that from everybody that lives there or everybody who engages in that particular environment. It can't be one rule for one and one rule for another. It just tends to create discord. One of the other things that we can also do is be aware of your own influence as well. So we'll talk a little bit more in another episode about especially the emotional contagion. So emotional contagion. But as caregivers, teachers, leaders, whoever, your actions carry more weight than your words. It's not do as you say, it's do as you do. They are going to follow. So if you can stay calm in a crisis, well, then you're helping other people to recognize that they should also be staying calm in that crisis. If you're getting panicked and agitated and overwhelmed, then exactly the same. Also encourage positive reinforcement. One of the big things that I teach, and it's mentioned in the book as far as the preventative side of things, is I want to make a culture of here, calm is encouraged and recognized and reinforced. Respect is encouraged and reinforced. That basically we promote the culture by not just acting it, but also recognizing it in everybody within it. So if it's, let's say we're referring to a school, for instance, if a teacher is respectful to another teacher, we should acknowledge it and appreciate it. If a student is respectful to another student, we should acknowledge it and appreciate it. If a student is kind to the teacher, it should be acknowledged, encouraged, and reinforced. So we're making it a universal that here is a place that we respect each other. We're creating this kind of model that this is how you act this way within this pack. And especially within things like your school, we're trying to avoid that them and us scenario. That if it's a case of, well, that's the way the adults behave, but this is the way the kids behave, for example, it has to be this kind of equality across the board. We all act in a similar way as far as some of the fundamental values of the organization. But ultimately, it's about recognizing the behavior is not isolated. It's a product of the interactions, observations, and reinforcement over a period of time. Nothing occurs in isolation. But if we are encountering a new individual within our setting, we have to think about that their culture has come from somewhere else. Their role modeling has come from somewhere else. So it's going to take a while before they start to adapt and learn ours. So bringing it back to the lift example or lift scenario mentioned earlier. And another example is the waiting room example, which is another wonderful one where a buzzer goes off in the waiting room and everybody stands up. And even though most of them are actors, one person in the room has no idea why everybody's standing up, but starts to follow and copy. And even though all of the actors are removed from the room in this waiting room, the person who had no idea why they were doing it continues to stand in response to every time this buzzer or this alarm goes off. As more people are introduced into the room, you then have a room full of people that are all standing up every time the buzzer went, because that's just the norm. That's what we do here. And even though nobody's really thought of why, everybody kind of acts in a similar way. So if you turn around to face the back wall in that lift then you just experienced social conditioning in action. It's not a bad thing. It's a powerful insight. And by understanding it, we can shape environments that bring out the best in people, making behavior management less about control and more about connection and guidance. Let me ask you a question. Do you ever find the pressures of supporting, teaching, or caring for someone else overwhelming and wish you had access to more support and information? The Able to Care podcast, in connection with Able Training, has created the ablehub.uk, where for less than the price of a coffee a week, you can access exclusive podcast content, resources, events, and over 45 certified online courses, covering topics like self-care, understanding dementia, neurodiversity, first aid, conflict management, financial advice, and so much more, with new content and courses being added each month. We are so confident that you will benefit from the Able Hub that we are offering 14 days access completely free of charge. No contract, cancel anytime. Become part of the ablehub.uk community and gain the support, knowledge, and resources you deserve. Don't struggle alone. Be able. Find the link in the description.